A shakedown cruise is a nautical term that refers to testing a ship before it enters service. The cruise simulates the actual conditions that are expected, which helps the crew get familiar with the ship and ensures all of its systems are working. It had been a while since I had my 11.5-foot Jackson Bite Angler kayak on the water. In anticipation of a 2-night camping trip I would be taking less than 2 weeks from now, I put that boat on the water to test out a different camera setup and some new gear, as well as to become reacquainted with the boat and paddle that will soon be a big part of my days. This trip once again finds me visiting the nearby and convenient Kiski River in southwestern Pennsylvania, floating from Vandergrift to Hyde Park. Just 15 minutes from my home, this route makes it easy for my wife to act as chauffeur, as well as providing a satisfying and scenic waterway. My legs are covered whenever I paddle my covered kayak, but I wore leggings today to protect my legs from the sun. It's always a touching moment floating away, leaving my spouse on the shoreline, but it's her choice not to accompany me. There had been a stretch of thunderstorms recently, and the Army Corps of Engineers had been releasing a good bit of water from the Loyalhanna and Conemaugh reservoirs, causing the Kiski to rise to over 7 feet, too high, muddy, and angry for me to go paddling there. The flow was recently throttled back and allowed me to get out today. The weather temperature was in the low 80s, no wind, and mostly sunny. Perfect conditions for an afternoon paddling excursion.
Well, we're off again on a shakedown cruise. Going to be going on a 2-night trip on the upper Delaware at the end of the month with this boat. Now, this boat I haven't been using much at all. This is the big fishing boat. Fishing kayak. Big, wide, long, stable. You can stand up in this thing. Yeah. And I've usually been taking my 14.5-foot eddy line Sitka LT, which is longer, I think close to a foot skinnier than this one, and certainly faster in the water. So another thing, I usually don't fish, but that's pretty much all that we'll be doing for 3 days on the water, me and my college buddy Dave. So this is a great platform for fishing. There's a lot of room for gear. A good platform for camping as well. There's big spaces in the front and in the back. Pack lots of gear, tent, sleeping bag, cooking stuff. Water, food, extra paddle, fishing gear. So it's a good boat for that kind of thing. But for making miles on the water, not as good. So it's a bit odd sitting on top of the boat instead of in the boat. A little bit odd using a Euro paddle instead of my Greenland paddle. But overall, the paddling is familiar. Forward strokes, backstrokes, draw strokes, sweep strokes. Those kind of mechanics are all the same. The boat is slow. It wiggles a little bit, goes fairly straight. It does seem easy to turn. Yeah, I see the first riffle coming up. The water today is 5.5 feet on the gauge, so I don't expect any problems with the riffles. Let's see what the first riffle is going to be like. Stay toward the middle of the river. That's usually a safe bet on the Kiski here. There's only one place that you really do need to stay to the left, and that comes in about the third riffle from here. Water's up the banks a little bit. Water's flowing a little faster than usual. So the trip today between Vandergrift and Hyde Park should be less than 2 hours if I paddle steadily and don't monkey around too much with my cameras. One camera today. And here's the riffle. What's left of it. There's just a little bit of waves on the right there. The rest flattened out. Just rocking the baby, just rocking very gently now. And one thing I have found is this setup is interfering with my paddling, so I think maybe I'll move this camera rig up to the next rail toward the bow. There we go. How about that? A little hot. Let's dip the hat. Oh, water's further down. My touring kayak, the water's a lot closer. That's nice. Yeah, nice. One other thing I have to get used to with the Greenland paddle is pick it up and use it. Doesn't matter where you grab it, which end is which end is up or down. There is no up or down, there is no left or right. With the European paddle, you got to have the logo facing up, and you have to have the scallop part of the blade facing the aft. So this is a lot more getting used to. And I also have the green and red for port, green for starboard on the shaft. On the Greenland paddle, I'm often holding the paddle like this, way up at one end or way at the other end. The Greenland paddle has an oval shaft to it. And you pick it up and it's immediately orients the blade where it should go. It orients the blade vertically. And this one you have to look. In fact, I have a yellow stripe on the shaft to indicate when the blade is upright, vertical. So there's a lot more fussiness with the shaft. And I seem to have adapted to a different paddling style. I'm much further off the water. I'm sitting in a seat. The gunnels are low. More of the power stroke comes in sooner. Paddle goes in the water, you're grabbing water right away. The Greenland paddle, it's more, the power comes more in the second half of the stroke, when the blade is starting to come out of the water and act more like an airplane wing, creating lift and giving you power. So, but I guess like riding a bicycle, you don't really forget how to do things, even though it's been a few months, maybe last fall since I used this kayak. Might even been on the Delaware that I used this boat. But seem to remember it. Water's just a little bit cloudy, a little bit brown today. A lot of times I'm on the Kiski here and the water is deep blue. And let's see how this goes. I moved the Ram Tough mount way up as far as I can on the forward rail there, and that's much better, at least in this shot. I think that the modification I made to tie it down has loosened up, and I also need to put a lanyard on that. That whole stick falls in the water. I'd be not very happy. Let me put this lanyard on there right now as I'm thinking about it. There. Better. Feel better. More secure. There's a riffle coming up. Get ready for that. Coming up on another riffle. This one looks a little more lively. A few white caps on there. Probably have to look out for some rocks. There's a stream coming in from the left. Let's see some current over on the port side. Produces a little bit of a sandbar off to the port side. So we'll stay a little bit more to the right side of the river here. Speed of the water picking up. And starting to bob a little bit in the water like a cork. And into the little white caps. See the water sloshing up through the scupper holes in the bottom of the boat. Nothing too exciting. I'll use my phone to photograph the rig I'm using. The Ram Tough Arm GoPro 11 in a medium mod housing with the Rode Go wireless microphone. Have it tied down to the rail that's opposite my left foot. Got a line and a bag on the bow. Got a Werner paddle. Got a waterproof bag with some lunch and sunscreen, and got my paddle tether tied into a eyelet I put in the seat. Got a box underneath the seat with some extra, oh, that's a spare GoPro. My GoPro 9 is backup. My Max lens mod. And not much else. Oh, I got my, oh, maybe you can see it. Oh, my Camelback attached to the seat. That's my setup. I'm not real pleased with the ram tough stick, tough mount. The end of it, or the base of it, swivels on the piece that clamps into the rail. There's a rubber friction washer, and I put in a knob with a shaft on it to keep it from swiveling around. But there's a center mounting screw that came undone. So I've switched to a different setup. This is a selfie stick that I put on an old ram mount that I use with an old camera from a dozen years ago, and I just have it clamped on there. So I brought this along just as a spare in case I needed it, and I needed it. And this is, I've put the Max lens mod on, and I even remembered to change the menu and set it to Max lens mod. I think it changes the frame size, the frame rate, resolution, whatever the hell. But I did that, and we'll see how these look different than with the standard lens. And I also have the remote on my vest. Reminds me of the Ohio State, but yeah. This is the riffle that I have to get way over to the left. Now we'll cut straight across here first, while the current is carrying us a beam. Big rock in the center there. Have to avoid. So the river takes a good bend to the right here, to the starboard. I think that's why the deepest water is over here against the shore on the left, the port side of the river. Yeah, with the water being higher, 5.5 feet, it flattens out a lot of those riffles, hides the rocks. It's my favorite level on the river, especially if I have the Eddy Line Sitka where I don't want to be rubbing the bottom with a thermoformed kayak. These molded ones, you can drag them along the ground, beat them up, hit rocks. They don't give a shit. They just keep on floating. Well, my remote stopped talking to the camera. Since I went into max lens mode. Tried pairing it, turned the remote off and on a couple times. Nope, not gonna happen. Oh well. So I'm trying out a new snack bar. This is the Go Macro Bar. Protein Decadence, dark chocolate and almonds. Organic, vegan, gluten-free. Well, not bad. Kind of like a brownie. I like the Power Bar Performance Bar, but they go in production, out of production. They get real expensive. These bars are close to $2 a piece. Jeez. So, I tried a few other ones, and not too bad, not chewy. Renee from the YouTube channel thruhikers just completed a solo unassisted backpacking trip across the entire length of Oregon by herself. And she packed these as a snack, also a Cliff Builder bar. A couple other ones. They're good enough for her. Good enough for me, I'll try them. Not too bad. Yeah, one thing that I always expect but never experience is that everything on a trip to go exactly according to plan. This is nowhere near a disaster, this trip, but I expected a little better performance from that Ram Tough Stick, Tough Mount. I'm also using a power bank, power the camera. Bought a rugged, waterproof, 20,000 amp hour battery pack, and that seems to be working pretty well. No problems. Haven't wired into the media mod with a USB cable. And the Rode Go wireless microphone has continued to work well, so no complaints. Except the darn remote's not working. Yep, not working. Well, I figured out what the problem was. My camera not connecting to the remote. My spare camera, my GoPro 9, was in a box underneath my seat, and it was turned on, and the remote was happily connecting to the GoPro 9, taking a picture of the inside of the box, instead of connecting to the GoPro 11 on the end of the arm, looking at the beautiful scenery. And I know you can hook up the remote to, I don't know, 5 cameras at once, and I tried pairing it with the GoPro 11, but when I finally realized it was connecting to the wrong camera, I went in the box, turned off the box, and lo and behold, the remote was happy to connect to the camera that I wanted it to, the GoPro 11 on the arm. So there you are. And whenever I'm putzing with my cameras, the boat drifts around, usually goes backwards butt end downstream instead of having the bow pointed downstream. But when I'm farting around with my cameras, I always have to keep one eye downstream because sure as shooting, there'll be a log or a rock, shallow, a tree branch leaning over. Something's gonna surprise me. So you gotta keep a watch out. Now, my favorite electrolyte drink is called Scratch, S-K-R-A-T-C-H. It's a powder. I like the lemon flavor. You put 1 scoop in a standard bicycle water bottle, and it's not cloyingly sweet, pleasant lemon flavor. You can drink the whole bottle at once if you're thirsty enough, but it's I enjoy it, and that's what's in the Camelback. I put 2 standard bicycle water bottles in the Camelback. So a little while ago I was paddling along and feeling the seat of my pants, the bottom of my butt getting wet. Saying, oh well, you know, I just want to go through a riffle. The water coming up scupper holes. There's a couple of scuppers right underneath the seat. And then I realized I was sitting on the little tip, the little blue tip of my Camelback. It was just enough to squeeze it. And now I'm sitting in a puddle of Scratch energy drink. So it'd been so long since I paddled a fishing kayak. I'd kind of forgotten how long it takes to go on this usual route from Vandegrift to Hyde Park. And when my wife dropped me off, I said, oh, we'll see you in 2 hours. Well, it's 15 minutes shy of 2 hours, and Hyde Park is yet to show up on the horizon. So I gave her a call and said, well, I'm going slower. You know, this boat is slower. And I've been mucking around with my cameras and farting around and not paddling very much. So I said, let's tack a half hour onto the time that she was to meet me. And that's where we are. Now I see the first purplish building of the Hyde Park Industrial Complex just appeared on the horizon. And it's 45 minutes before my wife is scheduled to pick me up. She usually arrives a little early, so I think we're okay. This is the little riffle right before River's Edge Canoe and Kayak shop. And not much of a riffle today, just some swirls in the water. That's where this kayak was purchased from. River's Edge. So we're going past the place where I picked it up. A group of buildings there. And their red kayak at their private launching landing ramp there. And this boat's a Jackson kayak, bite angler. And I've been happy with it the times I've used it for camping and fishing. And this is the ultimate, or the last riffle before Hyde Park. It's a little bit longer, a little bit more lively usually, but today should be fairly flat. The big rock there, you can tell by the V of waves behind it, or downstream of it. So we'll go through this riffle, and then a little bit of slack water, a pull, and then the Hyde Park boat ramp will be on the left shore. Nice boat ramp. Sometimes you can smell a riffle coming up. A riffle puts a mist into the air. If the wind's blowing your direction, it's not a sewage smell. It's not a fishy smell or an off smell. It's just a river smell. And you can always hear them coming up. And that's how I usually, if I'm not looking downstream, if I'm looking at the riverbank or my cameras or taking a drink or eating a food bar, I hear, oh yeah, there's a riffle coming up. So use all your senses. When you get up to the riffle, you can feel the water speed up as it gets shallower, and it's nice. It's nice to be on this river where it's just not flat like a lake. It bends, get a riffle, a little bit of a pull, shallow spots, deeper spots. I like the Kiski. It's nice. It's certainly a lot different from what I understand it was 15, 20 years ago. With acid mine drainage, orange water, and now it's full of bass and carp and catfish and sunnies and bald eagles and kingfishers, geese and ducks. Yeah, it's quite a change. Welcome change. Coming up on the boat launch, where today's trip will end. This is a successful shakedown cruise. Got to try out my Ram Tough mount and find out some problems with it, so I'll spend a happy time in my workshop, maybe putting in some set screws, or finding a way to keep it from unraveling, and just general think about how I'm going to arrange things for my upcoming trip on the Delaware. It's always a tricky approach here because that other riffle is, the next riffle is just 25 yards downstream. So you gotta come in here, and the stone wall's there, you gotta swing around that wall. Keep a little speed. Well, land ho! what did I learn today? Well, I did a shakedown cruise. Tried out the Ram mount. Got some modifications to do there. This little selfie stick came to the rescue, worked well. I have to remember to unlock the clamps before I move the mount. If I try to force it, I sometimes wind up unscrewing the mount from the rail, and that's not good. What else? The power bank worked great. I had to mount the poles way up forward on the port side there to keep them out of the way of my paddling. The high top shoes work great, and trying to think if there's anything else. Boat worked great. Slow, maneuverable. The food bar was good. Wasn't so stinking hot today. I only dunked my hat, I think, once. And didn't drink much of my drink. Got used to the paddle. Between my thumb and index finger, might get a blister there on both sides. Not used to that kind of paddle. Riffles weren't even riffles today. So it's a good time. Good time today.